What is up, YouTube? Today I'm here to do a review on the movie One Piece, number 12, the 12th movie. And first and foremost, I was not expecting that ending at all. That ending was very, very unexpected. So much to say about this movie. I actually wrote down in Notepad all the points I wanted to say because there's so much things I would have forgotten otherwise, and so many very distinct points that I really wanted to remember to bring across. And it was a good movie overall. A lot of points to discuss, and a lot of things I didn't really like about the plot and the whole thing as a whole. But I really thought it was a good movie at a lot of different parts. So let's just get started with this Notepad. First and foremost, I'm going to leave a link in the description if you want to watch the movie online for free. The quality is not the best, but it is the link I used to watch the movie, and I think it's the only one on the internet right now, so you're going to have to bear with the quality. It's not horrible, but it's definitely not 180p HD. So it's advised you watch the movie to know what I'm talking about, because this is my first and last spoiler alert. I'm just going to put it out there. Spoiler alert now. I will be spoiling. I'm not going to be spoiling, but I will be bringing up a lot of points that might end up spoiling certain plots of the movie, certain little bits of the movie. So you got to watch it first. Actually, you don't have to, but it'd be advised. Otherwise, if you just want to watch the review, go ahead. You'll be sure to still be entertained, even if you haven't watched the movie yet, and you'll still learn a lot and find out a lot about the movie, as well as other things. So, first and last spoiler alert warning. A lot to talk about, and I made this Notepad document, which I will be pasting in the description below as well. Man, what a movie. Such a huge movie. I will be pasting all these main points in the Notepad document I made in the description below, just so you guys know what I'm talking about, or if you want to reference them. And a lot to be said about this movie. I really liked it, and I wasn't expecting that ending. So first and foremost, very first One Piece movie or anime movie. Well, I don't know about anime movie, but definitely very first One Piece movie I saw. I tend to stay away from movies because they are in fact non-canon. But we'll get to that. Okay, let's just start reading from the list. I very much liked the beginning, okay? Very, very much liked it. Just the music was very badass. It was just very upbeat and, you know, very, very, it really pumped me with excitement. Very badass music. The starting scenes, the starting credits, it was just very, very badass. It was like, okay, they put in a lot of work to get this done. The credits, the starting scene, I mean, I'm like, what is going on? What is this machine? It turns out to be Z's arm, his huge robotic arm. I'm like, whoa, what the heck is this thing? And first, before I get into that, I do have to say, I took out time to watch this movie, even though I shouldn't have. I have a lot of work to do. So that's saying something about this movie. Very first One Piece movie I watched. It is the most recent one, as of July 2013. And so that's saying something. I usually stay away from them, but we'll get into that. Okay. So I really liked the very first scene, and I really liked the whole concept of Z being, you know, found out. He's like floating in the sea, and then they take him in, not knowing who this guy is. He could be a complete villain. And then they heal him up, and then Luffy's like, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. Go ahead and heal him, Chopper. I know that's your passion. You always have to heal someone as a doctor. And Luffy's like, okay, go ahead. If he's a bad guy, I'll take care of him. Don't worry about it. And so, very risky thing to do. I mean, they see his arm, okay? They know how like strong he is. They know his arm's made of sea stone, and they're still like, okay, we're just gonna leave him as is. We're not going to, dismantle him first. We'll take precautions. We know that sea stone can, destroy our powers, but we're just gonna heal him up and see what he's like. And quite obviously, he turns out to be, well, not obviously. I was expecting him to potentially be a good guy, and obviously that's not the case. He turns out to be the main antagonist, and we learn that quite quickly. As soon as Luffy says he's a pirate, boom, he destroys Luffy's entire ship. And I don't know, I really liked him as a character. I really liked the whole scene. I really liked the beginning scene with him and Kizaru and the Dyna rocks. I thought that was genius. The whole fighting, like that, the 3D fighting sequences at the beginning were incredible. Usually in anime, you never see that. It's always 2D. This was some next level stuff. I mean, I've never seen this before. It was like 3D done in a 2D way. I don't know how they did it, but it was very, very well done. They made cartoons into 3D, like it was legit 3D, and it was done very, very well. I really like those scenes, and it wasn't just the fighting, it was the straight up fact that you see this huge army of Marines, and then you see Z just destroying them with his iron arm, and then you see his Z subordinates taking them out too, and then him versus Kizaru. I mean, them like flying in the air and fighting. That was very well done. It wasn't just like a ground fight. It was a straight up lightning fast, aerial fight. And with him just going up and, throwing the dynamo in the air and just like letting it go, letting it be exposed to oxygen and blowing up the whole island, that was unexpected and very, very badass. It was awesome. I wasn't expecting that, and it made me very reminiscent of the DBZ days. It's been a while since I've read a manga at that sort of power level, save for maybe Bleach. Anyhow, very well done. Again, now we're gonna get into the start of the plot holes. So, okay, first and foremost, why the heck would they be so anti-cautious? They could have dismantled his arm. They could have straight up done so many different things, like taken off his sea stone arm, strapped him down, made sure he wasn't a bad guy before doing it. But I guess we can counter argue that Sanji and the rest of the crew pretty much knew that Luffy was just that laid back kind of guy. Even if this guy was strong, he wouldn't, take precautions like that. And we kind of saw that in the fact that Sanji and Zoro kind of had this little bit of a talk where they're like, we kind of know this guy's bad. Let's just stand guard and wait for him to wake up because we know we're going to be fighting him. The one thing I really didn't like about it was how quickly Z just straight up destroyed Luffy and his entire crew almost immediately, and pretty much rampaged and destroyed the Sunny. And the reason is because since the time skip in the manga, we do not know the full extent of Luffy's powers or pretty much any of the Straw Hat crew's powers. And this can be pretty much supported. I mean, they've had a full arc. They've had the full merman arc in the sea, but that arc never showed their full potential or the full limit of their growth. Throughout the arc, we've seen Luffy fight, but he's always, I wouldn't say effortlessly, but he's defeated his foes without having to resort to his full power. So we've seen his full power before the time skip, and we've realized that at least before the time skip, he's shown his full potential. Well, not full potential, but his max capabilities at the time, and they were not enough to beat a lot of people at the time. There's so many people stronger than him. Now, after the time skip, with all this training, I mean, we do not know what he's done. Like, he's probably still has abilities he has yet to show. I mean, he's been trained by that guy who was like second in command to oh my gosh, I forgot his name, Goldie Roger. But we don't know any of the Straw Hats' full capabilities, and I'm sure they're amazing. And to see him and the rest of his crew just mopped up and cleaned and owned and captured so quickly, it made no sense to me. And this goes into the thing that is non-canon, but despite it being non-canon, I don't see how that... Like, if it's non-canon, then it should not interfere with the plot of the original creator. For it to be non-canon means it's not from the original creator, and therefore you can't really go too much on your own, and especially you can't contradict plot from the main story. So I had a little bit of a problem with them being mopped up and beaten so quickly. And you can kinda relate that to the fact that they were freaking maybe surprised that Z and his crew of this new navy had that power level. And you could say, oh, they only lost due to shock or being surprised. I still don't buy that. It was very, very strange how they were beaten so quickly. And I don't understand why Z did not kill Luffy. Like, later on, you hear them saying how, like, when they land on the docks after they escape from Z, the locals say how so many pirates had come to these docks because their entire crew was ravaged by Z, and they were defeated and they managed to escape. If Z were in fact to be so ruthless and have so much anger versus pirates, then why did he not just straight out kill them? Why did he let all these pirates escape? And for that matter, why did he let Luffy... Okay, I kind of just answered my own question after thinking about it. The reason why he let Luffy escape rather than just killing him there was because Luffy mentioned his full name, and because of that, Z knew that this was the grandson of Garp. And we learn later that Garp and Z are pretty much like the same age, and this is kind of interesting. From the Wikia, somehow the Wikia tells us he's 74 years old, even though that's never mentioned in the movie, I don't think. But yeah, he's roughly the same age as Garp, and they were long childhood friends from the very get-go. So that's probably why he didn't just straight out kill Luffy. Did Z know Luffy and his crew would escape with the coup de burst from the ship? Probably not. He still, most likely what was happening was he could have killed Luffy right there with his iron sea stone arm, but he was like, oh, you're Garp's grandson. I'm just going to throw you onto this deck and shoot you down, and maybe if you're lucky, you will survive in the water and drift to the nearby island. And I'm just going to give you that sort of formality because you are Garp's grandson. And so I guess I buy that, because in the end, his full goal, again, spoiler alert, his full goal is to destroy the entire new world. So sparing him now isn't that big a deal, because everyone's going to die later if his plan succeeds. So I really felt like his reaction, like you see a cutscene of his face after Luffy and his crew escape using the coup de burst, I believe it's called, from the ship. You see his facial expression, and it's just like expressionless. It's serious, emotionless face. So that shows that he's not surprised with Luffy escaping or angered. And I really buy that, because we know that, or at least Z knows that it doesn't matter in the long run, because if his plan succeeds, the entire world is going to die anyways. So I really bought that. Next point on my notepad. We know Z is Admiral level, and that just brings up the point again where I didn't buy the fact that the entire Straw Hat crew, despite them progressing so much after the time skip, just so easily gets defeated by this guy. We know he's Admiral level, but still, I don't buy it. But I'm just gonna let that go because there's so many other points to address. I really like the little Nami and little Chopper effect, and the little Brook effect. Basically, if you don't know what I'm talking about, one of Z's subordinates, I don't know her name, I think it's Ain. She has this Devil Fruit ability, which each time she touches you, she can choose to lower your age by 12 years. So, Nami got lowered by, I believe it was 24 years. And, yeah, Chopper got lowered by 12 years. Brook got lowered by 12 years, etc., etc. Nico Robin, she got lowered by just 12 years. And so, it was very interesting. And that's a very interesting power, because this, I know it's non-canon, so it's not really, but this is the first introduction, technically, of an immortal person in the One Piece universe. We've seen it many times in the Naruto universe, but this is the first time. And why I'm saying this is because she can constantly reduce her age to, in effect, live forever, as long as she doesn't get killed with, like, a knife or a sword or bullets. She can technically, if she protects herself, live forever with this ability. And I really don't understand why she didn't use it to her full capabilities. I mean, if she touched anyone like a few more times, they would be non-existent, like they would be dead. That's exactly what she says after revealing her abilities. Why she did not do this to the pirate crew, maybe she has a heart, but at the same time she is Z's subordinates, and Z is very ruthless to pirates, and he wants them all dead. So it didn't make complete sense, but maybe it's because she has a heart. Who knows? Next point. There's so much to cover. I have to go really quick. Again, I write down this is non-canon, and that is why I usually do not watch movies. That's why I've never actually watched a full Naruto movie, because it is non-canon. And that's the same thing with anime, and that's why I usually don't watch anime, because again, it's non-canon and there's a lot of filler, which means pretty much that they add in all this crap that doesn't really add to the plot or conflict with the plot, and it's usually used just to fill up space and take up space in the episode, and it's usually like useless, pointless, spammy kind of stuff. And it doesn't really mean anything, and they make it in a way that doesn't conflict with the actual plot of the actual creator and the actual manga, and I really don't like that. The one exception is probably Full Metal Alchemist, because they were like, okay, screw it, we're gonna make our own plot completely, and they did it, and that was great. But I mean, that's usually why I don't do it, but lately I've been making exceptions. I mean, this was a great movie, and that's why I saw it, and I've been watching Toriko anime, and there's actually not that much filler, and the filler in it is actually pretty good, so I like that. Anyhow, next point. But before I get to that, the point of me stating that is because, again, you have to take a lot of this movie with a grain of salt, because it is non-canon, and if it gets kind of suspicious at points, you have to kind of let it go, because it is non-canon. And this was not created by the creator of One Piece. The plot was not made by him. The only movie to do so, and I researched this, was the 10th One Piece movie. That was the only one with contributions from the actual creator, Oda. Next point. So basically, I wrote this kind of earlier on, but no one knows where One Piece is. So how exactly does destroying the endpoint mean the destruction of One Piece? And so Z makes a claim that he wants to destroy One Piece, thus destroying all pirates. Later on, they kind of change that, and they say Z just wants to destroy the entire new world, and that's his plan. But I mean, what's to say One Piece will be affected by this? What's to say that pirates will stop doing what they do once One Piece is destroyed? We know that before Goldie Roger announced One Piece, there was a lot of pirates. It wasn't the big golden pirate age, but there were still pirates. Who's to say destroying One Piece means the end of pirates? That's why I didn't really agree with, or I didn't really believe in Z's motive. But later on, we find out that his, well, we don't actually find out, but we actually see that the plot shifts so that Z somehow changes his statements and says that his goals are not to destroy One Piece, but to destroy the entire new world. I don't know what's up with that, but we'll let it go for now. Next point. This is kind of random, but I have to put it in there. I found out from the Wikia that One Piece is the most popular manga of all time with the most sold of all time. Wow, I did not realize that. At least in Japan and China it does. I mean, wow. So, a lot of people are going to watch this movie, and hopefully a lot will watch this review. Just had to throw that in there. It was one of the points in the notepad. Anyhow, to a more important point, Zoro with glasses. I think this is against his character, and there's this scene after the spa scene in like the middle of the movie where he goes about for quite a while with glasses, and it's not explained. No one acknowledges this. They just get out of the spa, dress in new clothes, and he has glasses. I don't think him as a character would allow for glasses. And on top of that, I really do feel like this was just something that the artists thought, okay, I kind of want to see him in this new kind of light, so let's throw in these glasses. I don't know, it didn't really make too much sense for me. Let me just adjust the camera real quick. Yeah, it didn't really make too much sense for me, and I don't know, Zoro with glasses, the biggest thing for me was no one acknowledged it. No one made any sort of gag scene where they made fun of his glasses or acknowledged why he was wearing glasses, because we know he's not nearsighted and we know he does not need his left eye anymore. So I don't know, it was a fashion thing. Okay, again, back to Z and him as an antagonist and an eventual hero. I really like him as a character, and I will elaborate more towards the end of this video because I really like the ending. I wasn't expecting the ending. That ending pretty much boosted the rating of this video quite a bit, but for now, I wrote down that the sea stone arm that Z has, it just reminds me of so much other stuff, but I don't know what it is. I wrote down some possible things. Justice League, there's this guy in Justice League called Cyborg, or is a Full Metal Alchemist. The main character in that has a metal arm and a metal leg, but his is more kind of just an arm, not like a full out thing. Or is it Terminator? I mean, he kind of is buff like the Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I don't remember what this reminds me of. Was this copied from something else? Probably not, but I don't know. It just reminds me of something else. If anyone knows, go ahead and leave a comment below. But I really liked him as a character. I really thought the arm was so badass. I thought at first it was ridiculously OP, just too overpowered. But then you realize that even with that sea stone arm that can like destroy things by just crushing them, and if you get touched by it, you're screwed. If you have a devil fruit power, you just lose all sort of strength within you. It's kind of like kryptonite. But then I realized that you still need the strength and agility to duel with people, and at the same time, if you can't get close to him and touch him with your sea stone arm, you can't really do much. But regardless, I really liked all the artwork with Z. I mean, there's so many scenes with him where he's just walking around or just sitting there with his arm just smashed on the ground. It was so ridiculous. And there's certain scenes in it where it was like, is his arm getting bigger, or is that just the artist messing up? I really feel like his arm kind of got bigger throughout. Like at one point, like it was literally like this wide, like wider than the rest of his body. Like it was a scene where he was just sitting on a boat drinking some sort of beer, and he has his arm, and it's literally like bigger than most of his body. And I thought it was just really badass. I really thought it was really cool. And then my bubble slightly got bursted at the end when I realized that he wasn't a complete mechanical arm kind of guy. Luffy destroys the outer parts of his arm. It all crumbles. And then we realized that, like, at least up to like this point on his arm, he still has like his arm. And then like this little bit here, it's either like robotic or just not shown. And then his hand is black. And there's like a black glove covering it. So we don't know if that's robotic too, or it's a natural hand. And that kind of ruined it for me, because I kind of wanted like at least like up till here at the very least to be like completely robotic. And for Luffy to, you know, punch him, and then we realize that his whole arm is not robotic and it's just an outer shell, and it like just crumbles, and then we see like the inside and it's like a freaking normal arm pretty much. It's like, okay, wow, that kind of ruined it for me, because at the start, like, he had all these contraptions, like there's literally straps of like metal that connected from like his huge arm all the way over to like the left side of his torso here. So it was like, man, he put this thing is heavy duty. It requires a lot of work to handle. And then it turns out to be just some sort of outer gadget. It's still really cool though. Don't get me wrong. Still really cool, but I believe it was like mid-movie when I realized, okay, like it was the scene where he was like walking towards you. You can see like his arm, and then like there's like metal straps or metal rods that connected it to like the bigger metal arm. Like you see like his natural arm, and then metal rods connecting to his larger metal arm. And I'm like, okay, I didn't realize it was like that. I guess that's a little bit less cool, but I'm not complaining. Next point, the sea stone bullets. First off, I'm like, why don't the Marines constantly use this? I mean, we see a scene in the movie where Luffy just gets shot by sea stone bullets because he got too overconfident with bullets. And I don't blame him, because there's so many scenes where the Marines are shooting at him and he just bounces bullets off. But here, he gets shot and it turns out to be a sea stone bullet. He just collapses, loses all energy, and then just goes unconscious. And I'm like, why haven't the Marines been using this from the start? And I guess this is kind of answered from Z in the next dialogue. He says, these are not an easy task of obtaining. So I guess it makes sense. Sea stone is of limited quantity, and it's probably hard to get, probably in the deepest portion of the seas. Who knows? And it kind of reminded me of the Wolverine film, X-Men Origins of Wolverine, and pretty much Wolverine, who was pretty much invincible. He had indestructible metal covering his bones, and then such high levels of regeneration that even if he was shot, he would just regenerate it. And it just reminded me of how, like, at the end where, again, spoiler alert, the guy shoots adamantium bullets at him, and finally it hits him in the skull, and it destroys his memories. So it's kind of like that. It's like, okay, it gives me a little bit of nostalgia where, you find a new way of defeating a foe. Moving on to my next point. At the starting scene, when he's fighting Kizaru, the light dude, he stops for a moment, starts heaving heavily, takes out this contraption, and then it looks like one of those things people have with asthma, inhalers. And I looked on a Wikia for One Piece, and it's actually an aerosol because he has breathing problems. And I thought, okay, this has got to be key to the story. So I typed it down in my notepad. Turned out it was nothing. I thought maybe it could have been a potential weakness that Luffy used to exploit at the end, but it was not used. There's so much that could have been done with that. It could have been more than just breathing problems. It could have been like, I need to take this chemical every hour. Kind of like, sort of like Batman, Bane type of theme going there. I have to take this chemical every hour. Otherwise, I start heaving and I can't fight. Something like that. But that wasn't the case. It was introduced in the beginning and not introduced after that. Although I'm going to skip ahead to another point because it relates. Basically, he mentions the moment Luffy defeats Z, he mentions that he has gotten old and how ridiculous it is that his body won't move even though he wants it to. And it pretty much implies how possibly he's not in his prime anymore. I mean, if he is 74 years old as stated by the Wikia, which I'm pretty sure is accurate because he mentions pretty often, or he doesn't blatantly say that, but there's a lot of clues that tell you that he's pretty old. He says a couple times, an old guy like me doesn't want to, be in this world anymore, and all this other stuff like that. He constantly, brings up like little phrases that say that he's old. And then you got the aerosol thing with his breathing, and how he references Garp and how they're old buddies, and how Garp has flashbacks as well. And so, yeah, it really makes sense. He's really old. And the thing is, this means that he wasn't fighting in his prime, similar to Whitebeard. It has to be mentioned too that, just if you guys forgot, Whitebeard was not at his prime when he fought in the Marineford final fight arc. When Whitebeard died, he was not in his prime. I mean, a lot of people don't remember that or don't recognize that. It was blatantly mentioned by his subordinates that a lot of the things that Whitebeard could have dodged were not dodged because of his age and because of his sickness or illness, for a better term to use. But yeah, a lot of people forget that Whitebeard was not at his prime. Remember that time when Whitebeard got stabbed through the center of his chest with a spear? It was mentioned right after that from one of his subordinates that he could have easily dodged that in his prime, but because of his age and his illness, he didn't dodge it. And yeah, I mean, it's something you have to keep in mind. Back in the manga, it was shown a few times how when he was in his ship, he always had all this medical stuff around him because he wasn't doing so well in terms of sickness and illness. But relating this back to this movie, again, that just tells you that Z could have made a much bigger impact, a much bigger fight, and done a lot better against Luffy if he had been in his prime. And so I'll talk about that a little bit more once I get there. Okay, so next point. He says, okay, Z says that once he completes his plan, basically, I'm just going to briefly summarize. You destroy all 3 endpoints. All the magma underneath the surface rises and destroys the entire new world ocean. Basically, that's his plan, and that's just crazy because he mentions that no one will even expect it, and it makes sense because it's mentioned that the endpoints were so undercover that only the admirals knew about it. No one outside the Marines knew about it, let alone in the Marines, only the higher tier people like Z, because he was an admiral, knew about this. And basically, this is like straight overpowered because once he destroys the 3rd endpoint, everyone gets wiped out. He mentions how all the 4 emperors will be wiped out without even realizing what has happened or that this even existed. And so that's overpowered as crap. And it's crazy. I mean, it makes sense, but it's also crazy. It's kind of like this is like more power than the 4 emperors combined, technically, because they don't know what's happening and they can't stop it. And then by doing this, they were wiping out everyone. And so it makes sense that the Marines are putting in effort. I mean, I was going to rant about how I never thought the Marines put in any effort to stop him. They only sent like minor, like soldier level Marines in the hundreds to stop him, which isn't as good as just sending in a few like admirals. I mean, where is Akainu in this? Akainu is like the fleet admiral. Why doesn't he come in if this is actually going to destroy the entire new world? I mean, that's a huge issue. But the reason why I'm not ranting about that is because in the end we do see millions upon millions of vice admirals and admirals show up to stop Z, or Zephyr if you want his old name. So I really like this antagonist. I really like his plan. And another little snippet that I didn't like. I know I'm ranting a lot, but I like the movie overall, okay? Sanji, Zoro, and Usopp could not outrun a volcano with magma coming down. They used like a banana boat to get away. And I do realize that the magma is running at 100 kilometers per hour, as Usopp stated, but again, this goes back to the fact that the Dragon Ball Z / Toriko / One Piece super collaboration movie didn't really correlate well with power levels, because here we have One Piece, like the current One Piece movie, and they can't even outrun a magma volcano at 100 kilometers per hour. And we know for sure that Goku can go a lot faster. I mean, most of the Z fighters can go a lot faster. And yet, in that super collaboration with Toriko, One Piece, and Dragon Ball Z, it came out pretty even. So I didn't really like that. In the super collaboration, it just... I'll make a video on that. I can't believe I haven't yet, but I'll make a separate video on that. But again, it's a little bit of difference in power level. We know for a fact, there's plenty of evidence that most of the Z fighters can go faster than 100 kilometers per hour. Let alone Goku. I mean, come on, it's Goku. Moving on from that, again, I have to mention it is non-canon, so maybe if it was canon, they could outrun the magma. Who knows? Okay, so Z resigned and started new navy because the pirate who cut his arm off and killed his recruits became a Shichibukai (warlord). WTF. So they do this whole bio on how Z became corrupt. It's a very, very sad and touching sort of bio. I mean, I really felt kind of sad watching that. I didn't like it. His family, his wife, his kids being killed, and him losing all that stuff. Still, WTF. So his final straw is the fact that the pirate who cut off his arm and killed his recruits became a Shichibukai, or warlord as they call it in the subtitles. WTF. That doesn't make any sense. A Shichibukai is someone who is a pirate who is very, very wanted by the government. At least 100 million Bailey on the bounty. And one of these pirates who is very well wanted by the government or the Marines decides to turn himself in and become someone who helps the Marines out, and in exchange gets granted all these government powers. Why in the heck would you resign and start your own new navy and be against the Marines just because the guy you have such a grudge against pretty much decides to change his ways and help you? First off, that doesn't make any sense. Second off, it wasn't mentioned who this Shichibukai was. I know it is non-canon, so it could be anyone. In fact, it is a good idea not to state who, otherwise it might affect the plot from the original creator, Oda. But, I mean, it doesn't really make sense. It's like, this guy is coming to your side now, and you're going to get mad at him for that? You should be overjoyed. It would make more sense, because it seems to be very clear that the person who killed his recruits and his recruit ship and cut off his arm is not the same guy as the pirate who killed his wife and kids. But I really think that it would have made much more sense if Z, or you can call him Zephyr, if Z got angry and resigned and started the new navy because of the pirate who killed his wife and kids. That would have made a lot more sense than him doing it later on because this guy joined the Shichibukai. I mean, it makes no sense. However, the whole idea with him being a bad guy who's kind of good but also kind of bad is very unique, and I really, really like that. I like the fact that he's against the pirates, yet he's also against the Marines now, and he's against both worlds, and he seems to be a good guy at the very start, and then he turns out to be a bad guy once Luffy finds out about him, and then at the very end he's kind of a good guy again. So it's like a constant swap between roles. I mean, it's very, very well done. I mean, at the start when he's fighting Kizaru, you're like, this guy has to be a good guy. I mean, he's fighting the Marines, and we know the Marines are bad. And then it's like, is he really a good guy? I mean, he's stealing this stuff and exploding it, and he knows he's going to be alive after he explodes it, and that's why he's going to do it. And then we find out he's against the pirates too. So who is he? And then we find out he's against both, and he's part of this new navy, which at first we thought was a subdivision of the Marines, and then we find out, nope, this is in fact against the Marines as well. So a lot of twists and turns. I really like that. Very well done. Moving on. Quote, evil called pirates must be destroyed by Z. And that's what Z says. Here's the thing. And this is just in terms of One Piece as a manga. Luffy has always sort of taken on the title of pirate and been very proud to tell the world about it. Yet at the same time, he's never actually done things that most pirates would do, like pillage a village or steal from a village or raid a town and destroy the town. And so he does attract a lot of grudges and problems with the title of pirate, but it's very, very, very almost like naive and kiddish that he just, parades around with his title and wants to be Pirate King, and yet he doesn't actually do what the title stereotypically does. Like, honestly, he other than the fact that he has like a pirate ship, he's not actually a pirate, even though he has the title of it. So it's like this weird kiddish dynamic with him that Z constantly references, and so it's kind of cool. Moving on. This is getting pretty long. New pacifista models. Again, it's non-canon, but dang, they look pretty cool. White hair, like random like bald parts, eye patches. Dang, it's like the pacifistas have been made to be robots, and they are now commercialized to be mass-produced. Dang. I know it's non-canon, I know it's not from the actual creator's manga, but seeing these new pacifistas that are like Peach, Snow White, awesome. Next, how did Zoro and Sanji lose so easily at the start and then win so easily at the end? So they were destroyed by the two people, I forgot their names. One was named Anne, the other was, I forgot his name, but they were the two big subordinates of Z. And then at the end, they face the two same subordinates, and they take them out, I wouldn't say quickly, but they take them out in like 1 to 2 minutes, at least in terms of the movie. So I don't think they actually boosted in power level in between, but that seems to be like the only possible way. But at the same time, there's no way you could have, because literally they had no time, they didn't train, they pretty much didn't do anything in the whole bulk of the movie. They investigated, they walked around a bit, they talked a bit, and somehow they suddenly beat these guys really quickly. And the only practical solution or way of thinking of it is to say that Zoro and Sanji, they did not increase their power levels in such a short time. The reason they beat them was because they only lost initially because they were so taken aback or surprised, or they just got outsmarted and they didn't realize it, or they weren't sure what these people's devil fruit powers were, and they were surprised and shocked. Possibly. We know they couldn't have been that shocked because there was that dialogue between Sanji and Zoro at the beginning when they were prepping to fight, before anyone even knew, other than those two, that there was going to be a fight soon. And so I'm thinking the only possible solution to this dilemma is the fact that they didn't know about their devil fruit powers, and they didn't know that, with this touch you can turn 12 years in age, and this guy is super fast and can use vines and stuff like that. And so that is why they lost initially. They were surprised and outplayed because of it. And now that they are used to it, they swept the floor with these guys. I wouldn't say swept the floor, but they beat them fairly quickly. And I really like the whole just destruction that Zoro places on this girl. And at first I'm like, okay, this power is overpowered. Each time she touches someone or she wills it, I mean, she doesn't even have to touch it. Like, when you see the fight with Zoro and her, she pretty much makes like rock turn into magma because of her devil fruit powers without touching them. So why did she not just make Sanji into like a baby immediately without touching her? I don't know. I guess maybe you do need to touch. Potentially or possibly the reason why she made those rocks melt into magma was because she was touching the ground and then the ground's connected to the magma. I don't know. But then again, isn't the ground also connected in a way to Zoro? So technically she's touching everything because you're touching the ground. Who knows? But the point is, she could not get close to Zoro to touch him in order to transform him into a baby. Because of that, boom, Zoro swept the floor with her. And before I forget, I really like the whole investigation in the middle of the movie where they were trying to do some sort of investigation to figure out what to do now. And the reason is because it really played well off the fact that Nami was a kid. They used that to an advantage. Nami pretending to be a kid to get all this important information from the Marines. And I really like that little ingenious twist to it. They used their disabilities to their advantage. That was very, very clever of them. And so, moving on, Z admits he's old, possibly lost due to his not being in his prime, potentially could have killed Luffy. Again, I mentioned this before, but we have to bring it up again. I mean, Luffy still had a lot in him, but it's just something to bring up. I guess it just adds to the sadness of this whole story, and the surprising shock of the ending. Great stuff. I didn't like the fight at the end though. I mean, we get to see Z in his prime fighting form, which apparently is like 2 black fists. That's what he was known for in the Marines. And then Luffy doing the same thing with that type of haki that shields his hands, and he makes his hands black as well. And so I thought that was really cool, but it ended up just being like a straight realistic punch fight, which I don't think should have been done, because Luffy could have used so much other stuff there. He could have used Gomu Gomu still. He could have used Jet Pistol. He could have used Gatling Gun. We didn't see Elephant Gatling Gun at all. We saw Gear Second. By the way, the more you use Gear Second, the more you seep your lifespan. So each time he uses it, it saps his lifespan, and that has been stated in the manga. So he's pretty much like killing his life when he uses it. And the more he uses it, especially when he runs out of food and nutrients, or he's tired, or he's overused it, Gear Second will sap his potential lifespan, which is really bad because Luffy's already had his health cut, and his potential, the potential span of his life, like how long he will live until, be cut like in half after he got poisoned by Magellan in the prison and then saved. And if you remember, he made a deal in order to be saved, or even have the possibility of being saved. If he lives, he will live a much shorter life. So I mean, Luffy constantly using Gear Second, not the best thing to do. And I have to keep checking my stopwatch because this is going on for quite a while, and I have to end it very soon, even though there's so much to talk about. And so I'm pretty much cutting stuff very, very short. Another thing I didn't like, I did like the fact that the Straw Hats stood there and let Luffy fight 1v1. Luffy didn't want any distractions or help. But what I didn't like was what Luffy said after he obtained the Straw Hat. He said, "If you want to continue with whatever you want to do, I'm satisfied, go ahead. I'm just here for my Straw Hat." He said he was only there to pick his Straw Hat. Yet he knows fairly well, he knows damn well, because Akoji, by the way, I loved Akoji's entire role in this. I'm not sure why he didn't just go all out himself. Maybe it was because he lost to Akainu and he just feels inferior now. Who knows? But Akoji told them exactly what Z's plan was, and it makes no sense that he would just say, "Okay, I've got my straw hat now. You can do whatever," because if Z chose to do whatever, then he could have freaking blown that last endpoint, and that would have meant killing Luffy, killing everyone else, and destroying the entire New World and One Piece along with it, which is so many things that there's so many ways that this is not what Luffy wants. Luffy says he's only here for a straw hat because he wants to be Pirate King, and in order to do that, he needs a straw hat to return to Shanks one day to prove it, and he wants to get One Piece. Yet here he is saying, "Okay, I've got my straw hat now. I'm satisfied. You can do what you want." And if Z did what he wanted to do, he would have blown up Endpoint, the third Endpoint, which would have destroyed One Piece, thus preventing Luffy from becoming the Pirate King, or just destroying the New World and preventing him from sailing to One Piece, destroying the New World, destroying all the pirates, preventing him from having any adventures, or just destroying the New World, and killing everyone that lived there. And since Luffy and the Straw Hats were on the New World, they would all die as well. Because what happens is the magma comes up, kills everything in the New World. Even the ocean. The ocean will apparently burn too. So, didn't really understand that. I guess technically you could play on the fact that Luffy was in fact hoping that because of the way he said it, it would incite Z to withdraw on his plans, which he ended up doing, so possibly that was why he did it. By the way, there's a lot of civilians who have no powers in the New World, which is very surprising. I know this is non-canon, but we do see it in the manga as well, which is very surprising because we were set up to believe so many times that the New World is this crazy place where only the toughest pirates can survive in. Anyhow, Z's subordinates, after being owned by Sanji and Zoro and being injured, just show up again at the end, very, very healthy. I don't know what's up with that. Finally, why he wanted to be called Z was explained at the end. I really, really like this. The whole ending where he's like, "Okay, I'm not gonna blow up the last endpoint," and then we see all the Vice Admirals come, and he's like, "Okay, you know what, Luffy, go on your adventure. I'm gonna fight these guys out." And I really think that could have been articulated better. He never actually said what he wanted, but it was a lot of implications. He never actually talked that much, but I really think there could have been more words to make it very clear because it was kind of muddy, but this is my interpretation. He's like, "Okay, I'm not going to blow up the third endpoint. You've changed my way of thinking. Luffy, go ahead and do what you want. Be the Pirate King. Go on your adventures. I will hold these admirals off and protect you. I'm very old anyways, and I'm going to die anyway. So I'm going to die protecting you, and this will be my graveyard." And then he does this triumphant fight, and it's very touching, and we see him duke it out with all these Vice Admirals, and he dies valiantly as the hero. And it's very, very sad. And the saddest part and the best part was why the very, very ending with the flashback. I'm so glad that this is a cartoon / anime and not real life, because it was real life. If this actually happened, I would be so sad. I might even burst into tears. But basically, he has this flashback, and it's him as a child, and he's pretending to be this superhero with this cool right arm, but he's using plastic stuff as a little kid. And he's like, my name is Z, and that's where his name came from. He wants to be the superhero as his child, and he's defeating these foes as a child. And you see this little kid, and it's a very sad and valiant ending. And the part where Akoji basically seals him up with ice and seals up the dino rocks and pretty much says, okay, we're going to leave you here, and by doing this, this is your final grave. You can valiantly fight and die, and Luffy and the rest of the crew can escape. And it was very touching. They escaped. Very, very touching ending. Very surprising ending. I was not expecting that. I thought he would die trying to set off these dino rocks, and then Luffy would end up somehow escaping. Like, that was the standard expected ending, and that didn't happen. I was very touched. Z ended up being a good guy, and I really, this is what, like, I thought this was going to be a tragedy thing, and I was going to be sad that it had such a sad ending, but Akoji surprised me by saying at the very end, don't cry, don't feel sad for this guy, don't cry next to his funeral. He died exactly how he wanted to die. He lived a great life. He was a cool guy. And that was amazing. So I'm not going to feel sad for him, which is great, because I don't like feeling sad for sad endings. I don't like sad endings at all. And so, Z or Zephyr, I salute you. You are a great, great antagonist and great hero for this story. That's it. Subscribe, like, and I've gone full nerd on this video, but subscribe. See you. I salute you guys. Peace.